This is Lady Boulay, and I hope you're having a great day. It's a beautiful Saturday morning. I hope your weekend will be relaxed and that you'll just enjoy yourselves. Hopefully you won't have a whole lot of bad weather. And please be careful out here. People are really having issues and they're taking it out on everybody. So be careful, be mindful and diligent as you go about your daily walk. I wanted to come back and just clarify or add just a little bit to the video that I did on the first black members of Congress who were Republicans. I want to emphasize that they were Republicans because the Republican Party had given them a reason to be Republicans. But at the end, the Republicans threw them under the bus with that 1877 compromise. When we talk about black people going back into slavery and Jim Crow, we are talking about the compromise of 1877. It ended Reconstruction and it brought to a standstill all of the progress that African American people had made since slavery. It literally set them back 100 years. This compromise will always be a blight on the American system, which prides itself on saying that freedom and justice for all. These people had been enslaved for 246 years. A war had been fought. They fought in the war and won and had been declared free. The South was allowed to re-enslave these people and strip them of all of their constitutional rights. And just to add drama to the discourse, their labor was stolen, they were lynched, flogged, beaten, burned, hung. Anything could be done to them if they didn't comply to a system that told them they were free but was treating them like slaves. So for those who are against reparations, I would ask the question, what would you have black people do? Our ancestors were enslaved for 246 years and then another 100 years of de facto slavery. And with no compensation, reparations is the least that could be done for us for what was done to us through our ancestors. So just to recap the compromise of 1877, there was a tie in the Electoral College vote. The Republican and Democratic candidate each had 269 votes. Someone had to give in. The compromise was that the Democrats would let the Republican become president if they would let the Democrats have control over the South and re-enslave black people. The Republicans wanted the power, so they gave in. The Democrats wanted to rebuild the economies of the South. They wanted the glory that they had had before the Civil War, and they wanted to do it on the backs of the former slaves, the people who had brought the glory in the first place. And they got their wish. But the Southern economy has never recovered. Nobody thinks of the South these days as being a wealthy region. So whether it's karma or not, some of the poorest areas in the country are in the South. And that's probably not going to change anytime soon because the image of the South is not exactly positive, and Southerners get a bad rap for a number of reasons. Now, I want to tell you just how hard it was for black people in those days. And it wasn't that long ago. My mother told us a story about her mother's friend. Her mother had a friend who had a daughter that was living in the Mississippi Delta. Her daughter got sick, so she went down there to see her. She was just supposed to stay for about a week, and then she was going to come back. And so my grandmother was waiting for her friend to come back. And she waited, and she waited, and she waited. And the friends were like, where is she? What happened? She's supposed to be back by now. And she didn't show up, and they were just worried about her. Finally, she showed up. She told this harrowing tale about getting to this little town near Greenwood and being whisked off into a plantation. And she stayed on that plantation, and they worked her and worked her and worked her. And the people, the black people that were working on the plantation too, finally asked her, who are you? Where did you come from? And she told them that she had come from Alabama and that she was coming down there to see her daughter, and the next thing she knew, she was brought on the plantation, and they wouldn't let her go. So the people went, they knew her daughter, and they went and told her daughter that she was down there, and her daughter came and got her and put her on the bus and sent her back to Alabama. And the best that anybody could figure out was she was arrested for getting off the bus. She was so terrified, traumatized by that, that she said, I would never go back to Mississippi again. And her daughter died down there, and she wouldn't even go back down there for the funeral. And this was in the 1930s. Things like that and worse happened all over the South. And it is because of that compromise of 1877. Instead of the Republicans seizing the power after they won the Civil War and setting this country on a course of fairness, equal justice under the law, due process, they were more concerned about reconnecting with the South and white supremacy than they were in doing what was right. Black men, women, and children suffered tremendously behind this decision. Go to any civil rights museum in the South. Look at the laws that were passed. Look at the activities that were done against black people. And it doesn't even scratch the surface of what was actually done. And it goes back to 1877 compromise and Republicans throwing black people under the bus. So in the end, neither one was trustworthy, and power won, as it always does. When I was a youngster in grade school, I heard my daddy and my uncle having a discussion about politics. It was a presidential election coming up, and they were trying to debate who would make a better president, the Democrat or the Republican. And my uncle said, brother, there ain't a nickel's worth of difference between a white Democrat and a white Republican. And he was very adamant about that. And I think that that is still the case, because in truth, they're both batting for the same team. It's just that one is a right-handed batter and one is a left-handed batter. So power always wins, but everybody has to know what their objective is. In 1877, the objective of the Republicans was to get power through the presidency. The objective of the Southern Democrats was to regain control over the South with no interference from the federal government so they could re-enslave the former slaves and rebuild the Southern economy. Right after the 2020 election, when the Democrats swept Georgia, the mayor of Atlanta made a very profound statement. She said that the same thing that happened in Georgia could happen in Alabama, Mississippi, and South Carolina, because these states have similar demographics, large numbers of African American people. And with that, we could put it to the test as to whether or not the vote has any real power. And just to make the point, during slavery and after the Civil War, South Carolina had more African Americans than it did white people. Where did those people go? They didn't all leave the state, and black people reproduce more and more often. So where are they? Where did they go? So if we want power, we have to be very strategic, like everybody else. Establish the objective and work towards that, because power is going to win. We can never forget the compromise of 1877. The Republicans threw their most loyal voters under the bus in order to gain power. That was not an oddity or a one-time deal. That's how politics works. So while we're arguing with each other over which party is better, Republican or Democrat, let's keep in the back of our minds the compromise of 1877. Enjoy the rest of your day, everybody.